my name is Lauren Greshner, and I'm the Program Manager for CEBIT Australia. I'm going to be introducing the next few sessions. I want to thank you all for joining us today, and I hope you've enjoyed your time at CEBIT. I want to take a moment to thank all of our sponsors and exhibitors for their support. I hope you've had a chance to visit as many of them as you can. Thank you in particular to the New South Wales Government, our supporting sponsor, Vodafone. We'll be doing Q&A today if there's time at the end of the sessions. You do this via the event app. So if you open the app and swipe to the second screen, you will see the interactive sessions button. If you click that and find the session, you can ask questions that way. I'd like to introduce our first speaker, Peter Xing. Peter is a Senior Technology and Innovation Manager with KPMG, helping organizations and individuals navigate through uncharted times of accelerating change and disruption. Peter will be looking at how smart devices can integrate with our bodies by 2029 and how Apple can stay relevant over the next decade. Please join me in welcoming Peter.
Hi. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. Thanks, Lauren, for the introduction. I'm Peter Xing. I work in tech and growth initiatives at KPMG and helping these corporates try to find ways to innovate and grow their businesses. I'm also a co-founder of Transhumanism Australia, a community that's dedicated in how we can combine technology with our biology to expand the limitations of our human condition. So you heard from David earlier, and this is a perfect segue in what would 2029 look like. I'm going to do it from the lens of what your Apple devices look like for the next 10 years. So put your hands up if there's any Apple fans out there, any iOS users. Yeah, great. All right, this might be a little bit disturbing and disappointing, but you know, keep staying with me, and hopefully we can take you through it. Okay, so I wrote an article back in January about this, if you want to check it out. It's about that roadmap of what every year we used to of improving technologies. And eventually I settled on what that Elon Musk would look like in Neuralink. So this is sort of like a little teaser going through. So how many of you got the new 11 Pro, iPhone 11 Pro? Yeah, there's one. That's right. I got my mum and dad one as well, just recently. Look, there is some innovations to it. That triple lens camera is pretty freaky, but it's pretty awesome. And you've seen some really rapid improvements, as you expected, through computing. And the 11 also makes it very affordable. We got the Apple Watch Series 5. How many of you guys got that? Yeah, not many? It's hard to upgrade each year with so many improvements, right? But, best of all, look, this AirPods Pro. Anyone got those yet? It's coming out today, and it is for an affordable $399 Aussie dollars, right? You get a PS4 for that, but look, I'm still going to get one this week because it's just that part of the ecosystem. Now, we're used to these better devices each year, and it's surprising that the first iPhone came out back in 2007. And in the last 12 years, it's gone through these incremental improvements. But you can see that the innovation is starting to slow. Apple's recent revenue for the fourth quarter essentially declined for the iPhones down by 9%. And that's been happening year on year, and it's been flat for the last year or so. In China especially, they're blaming it on the market share. So this is Chinese market share of iPhones, and you can see these competitors are rapidly catching up because it's hard to get a presence there. Apple is seeing it about 10% compared to the likes of Huawei, and Vivo, and Oppo, and Xiaomi, and Samsung, and others. So there is a burning platform for Apple here to innovate and find new users, because otherwise they're going to have no more users to sell their services. So this is Tim Cook at the last financial statement saying that, look, we can't change macroeconomic conditions, but we are undertaking accelerating initiatives to improve our results, right? One such initiative is a simple trade in your phone in our stores and finance the purchase at the time, right? So these are sort of a chief operating officer finding ways to get more pay for their buck and helping the users actually be more profitable. And you can see that still the iPhones still represent almost 50% of the entire revenue source of Apple. Services are growing, so you've got Apple TV Plus, you've got Apple Arcade, all the iCloud payments that you have to subscribe for now because your phone's full of the photos and videos that they keep upping each year. And that's slowly growing, but still, 50%, that's still a huge way to go. And without that, to keep users in the ecosystem, that profitability might not be there in the future. So, what can they do to stay competitive and innovate? Apples. Let's start with the year 2020, right? So we've got Tokyo 2020 next year, and also the Paralympic Games of 2020 next year we're seeing these improvements in how technology can improve humanity. One such example is bionics. We're seeing that sprinters and marathon runners, they're actually going faster and longer than normal humans. And it's going to be more and more interesting sport to watch as we integrate more with our technology in this space. But what do we get from Apple? We'll probably get another iPhone, the iPhone 12. So we're going to get rid of those front-facing cameras, potentially, or the front-facing bezels, and still have the cameras embedded. But that camera setup at the back will probably stay the same. You'll get a faster chip, the A14 Bionic. We get the other sensors, there's just a dot projector. But I think the biggest innovation coming out of next year will be the 5G wireless. This is the Qualcomm chip that will come embedded in the 5G, and that will enable Apple to start integrating with more and more devices and increase the bandwidth that they have. This is what 5G can do, right? So, back in 1991, we got 2G. You can send SMSs at 0.1 megabytes per second. 3G was about 0.1 to 0.8. You can do SMS and internet. 4G, 15 megabytes per second, and 5G, the Internet of Things, will enable us to do 1 to 20 gigabytes per second. And that's just not just the internet, but also the smart devices that you're actually transmitting to. We're getting rid of all the wires of cables that are attached to it, such as virtual reality. And speaking of virtual and augmented reality, this is the best that they've got out there. This is Magic Leap, a company that's actually been hyped up, billions of dollars invested in, the likes of Google. And this is what they've come up with. It's essentially a meme because for a user to look like this out in the streets, it's going to be kind of a joke. It would be essentially compared to a spider with all these eyes coming out. And it's got that freaky angle, kind of like a triple lens camera at the start. Maybe we'll get used to it. But what Apple does best is design, and will make devices that people not just want to, not just have to wear from a functionality perspective, but would want to wear. So these are glasses that they'll partner up with, the Luxotticas of the world, to actually get designed, and people want to wear these as a fashion system. And the leaks have already come out. So this is what it looks like in an augmented reality world. We're able to help you navigate a better version of Apple Maps in the 3D sense. We've also got the AR kit, essentially all developed already on the phones. So there's developer solutions already out there. And what that enables you to do is actually augment your intelligence all out there on the streets. Seeing another layer. We also saw the Pixel 4 this year. So how would you navigate and interact with your Apple glasses? This is the Soli and Pixel 4. You're essentially just waving your hands to do the gestures, right? And that's essentially how you would navigate with the Apple glasses. Now this radar technology can actually sense the movement, the counts of sheets of paper as you're actually going through it. Right now it's not working too well on the Pixel 4. People are just trying to skip songs and try to tickle their Pikachus on there. But basically it's going to be so good with machine learning embedded that you'll be able to use it for your interface with the Apple glasses. But what else will it do? I mean, humanity is so limited in the ways we can see the visual spectrum. This is, the slight visible light you can see the entire electromagnetic spectrum. We don't see infrared, we don't see gamma rays, we don't see X-rays. So with the augmentation of our visual fields, we'll be able to see things like night vision, but also what are the dangerous X-rays or gamma rays coming out on a typical hot day. And the radio waves to be able to see the movements on the other side of a wall. These are sort of the augmented intelligence that these smart devices, augmented our reality, will be able to do. So those are the promises of the AR Apple glasses. But we'll move on to see how they develop over the next 3 years. So let's go to class of 2021, 2022, and 2023. All right, let's sprint through these because these bands of innovation usually happens in one. We saw the foldables, right? So Apple will probably come out with a foldable in 2021, and the Galaxy Folds had some successes and failures through getting that through. You already see in the top left there, that's the Westworld interaction. So science fiction is already becoming a reality, and this will actually expand the next innovations. But also the Surface Duo on the bottom right. Well, what's going to be really important, so how our AirPods and AirPod Pros are going to evolve. Now, you would have heard of cochlear implants. So these are helping the disabled be able to hear, just as well as a human can. But in the future, it's going to allow us to hear what's on the other side of the room, or essentially different sound spectrum, just like with visible light. And you can see the ranges that humanities are limited to, and what dogs and cats and whales and bats and rabbits and rats can hear. So you can see that these are essentially augmenting our hearing, and we've already deciphered, I guess, from the human brain how listening and sounds work. and augmenting that with the AirPod Pro 4, 5, this is where we're heading in interactions. That's how they're going to get into the Apple healthcare space. So Apple healthcare is going to be the big play. That's part of their strategy, essentially knowing and quantifying every Apple user. And you can see how that potential generation of a fee is giving the data and consent to the physicians, the clinics, the hospitals, and the biopharmas, and the labs, and the retails. They'll be able to help you stay healthy. I mean, they're already doing it with the ECG nanograms with the Apple Watch, and also with the AirPods to be able to do heartbeat to complement what the users see. We're seeing a lot of breakthroughs in the healthcare space, especially along longevity. So part of Transhumanism Australia, we look at the researchers that are looking into extending a healthy human lifespan. And I think it's probably the best things that Apple could do for their users, keep them living longer so they can buy the next iPhone device. Right? So this is David Sinclair from the UNSW School of Medicine and also at Harvard, and his team is actually looking at ways of drugs that are extending the healthy human lifespan. They tested it on mice, they extended it by 30% using a drug called NMN, and he's gone through a few podcasts such as the Joe Rogan Show to actually promote that. Recently he wrote a book on that too. But partnering with Apple and how to actually keep users staying longer, living healthier longer is going to be the way to go. We're also looking at design of babies in the future, so we're actually looking at how do you help keep the healthy human lifespan longer using gene editing technologies. Or, who wouldn't want a longer living baby, but was it up to them in the first place? You saw in China they've made a design of baby ready using CRISPR-Cas9, and there's new ways of developing these technologies like prime editing, which more accurately edits those genes. So longevity, we'll park that for now, but there is a longevity X prize, essentially getting $5 million from an organization that can convince a government to treat the aging process as a disease. And if you do that, there's commercial incentive for people to start investing more into this research and commercialize it. So, 2024, 2025, and 2026. Now, we're going to see a lot of the technologies automate the job. So you saw Andrew Yang over in the States talking about a universal basic income. He wants to give $1,000 a month US to every US citizen because automation is actually making people lose their jobs and not being useful in society. But what can you do with all that spare time? What can you do when you essentially got a basic income where you don't need to work? This is where the virtual reality could come in. So there's that Oculus Connect 6, and this is the latest research on how to create these virtual glasses and scan your face in real time. So you can have an interaction in the virtual world, such that you don't really need to be physically present anywhere around the world. It can kind of be like a Ready Player One sort of thing. This is the Tesla suit, so this does the full body haptic version of that, so you can actually sense things in the virtual reality across all your body. And they were here recently from Singularity Australia Summit. Essentially uses the same technologies that physios use to simulate the touch. And it also has heat packs and cool packs to actually simulate heat. We have here is also at the finger level. This is actually the latest from UCSF. Essentially using these air bubbles at the fingertips to simulate a sense of touch. So there's the fingertips of touch or our bodies, our skins, is that are going to get more and more immersive in the virtual reality. And we can even simulate taste. So the latest research, essentially, you can actually have an app store, potentially in the next 5 years, to have simulated taste. So a chef could put their own tastings of the Michelin star goods there and actually create that. And this is what it currently looks like, right? You're essentially licking a plate and simulate saltiness and sweetness. But all immersion, you can actually be living on, say, Soylent and having these taste buds in virtual reality. Control Labs is another company that Facebook bought. Essentially, this is allowing you to read your mind at the wrist level. So the signals that you send from your brain to your hands, these signals are able to be embedded and read by machines now to move the fingers and the body parts. So all that brain-computer interface is starting to develop. We've seen the synthetic speech generated from brain recordings, so this is already out. And it's basically pretty narrow at the moment. It can sense what dream states are like. It remembers certain words that you can say and it types it out for you. You can actually implant false memories in birds. So this is actually teaching birds new songs that they've never heard of. So we're seeing an input and output version of these technologies. And this is where we come to what David was mentioning earlier around Neuralink and these brain-computer interfaces. So Neuralink, essentially using these robotic surgeries to implant these tiny electrodes into your brain. They need the robots because they need to avoid all those sort of blood vessels in your brain. This is what a simulation would look like, essentially in almond. And these wires are about a quarter of the length of a human hair, so that you can avoid, and also the brain is quite malleable, so as you're doing the implants, and in order to stay in, it's not causing damage as the brain goes around. Essentially going through it, and thousands of these electrodes will essentially do readings of your brain communications. And machine learning will essentially decipher what it is you're trying to think versus what you're actually doing. And so this is sort of the advancements in that brain-computer interface. And by 2026, we're looking at potentially a market device, a Neuralink, kind of like with cochlear implants, with these devices that are attached at the back and connected to your brain. And essentially that'll be another fashion accessory, right? If you're going to augment your intelligence, you might as well look at doing it. They're going to have their own app interface. So this is the Pod 1 we can control. So by then you probably wouldn't have iPhones, it would be probably embedded in your wearables, but you can essentially train yourself on how to move and think how the machine should be moving by moving your hands, and it'll read the thoughts of you moving your hand, and that'll do that either in the virtual reality or as part of the hand gestures interface. So that's what maybe 2026 would look like. We've got our virtual reality headsets, we've got our brain-computer interfaces, we've got our sensory touches, we've got our full-body haptics. So we are heading to the world of what the Matrix will be like. This is Cypher from the Matrix, essentially saying ignorance is bliss, because you would rather enjoy that state in virtual reality than the goo that is living in real life in the real world. But what does that mean in terms of access to our knowledge, our thoughts? Right? You see, in China, they've already got that social credit score. And what if you start having negative thoughts about the political party, then they probably have a way of identifying you that way, right? And also with deep news and fake news and deep fakes, you can see this is Bill Hader essentially does impersonations, and they've actually overlaid Arnold Schwarzenegger over his face as he's doing the impersonation. So whether your thinking in the virtual reality is real or not, how can you trust your own thoughts in that sense? Right? So that's why they're developing these protocols to find ways of accessing truth. This is the proofs and secret data to make sure that the Web3 interfaces, the distributed ledger technologies will play a big part in making sure that what we think and the information we get and the thoughts are truly ours in the future. You would have heard David Hansen speak also earlier around the Sophia robots, and that's powered by Singularity Net. So this is an AI and blockchain initiative where it's essentially decentralizing the AI economy. So this way that, rather than pooling all that information in one large corporate, you're actually decentralizing that and make that accessible to all. So if you want to create an AI app, you can put it on Singularity Net. It's out in beta right now. And then there's the advent of quantum computing, right? So the quantum processing unit essentially allow us to decipher even more and develop these artificial general intelligences that David Hansen was talking about. So these are also technologies coming online over the next 5 or 6 years. Well, what does that mean for 2027, 2028, and 2029? So this is a very optimistic approach. So 2029, the Ray Kurzweil predictions of what might happen with artificial general intelligence. Well, for those that want to live in the real world still, we have, those that want to colonize space. So Elon Musk will be essentially going out and colonizing Mars, creating a 1 million people city there. And, when he comes back, you probably want to find ways to do about all the people in the virtual world. So this is where we think that Apple and Neuralink will form a partnership. So essentially the SpaceX, Tesla, and the Boring Company, that value with Neuralink combined will be greater than Apple by then. Even though Apple's got a $200 billion war chest right now in cash, this is probably as far exceeding they might have by 2029. So that merger will look like this, right? So Elon might be crazy enough to say, well, look, I've got all the people in the virtual reality world, maybe we just need to tread lightly, because he could be evil. He could have control over every single Mac user. This is the future I want to see. So from Black Mirror, this is the dystopian version, but this is probably the only happy ending I've seen. And basically these two ladies are living in virtual reality, and they're in an aged care home. So this is their physical avatars. And they're enjoying themselves, everything essentially like virtual reality and realistic. basically what's happening right now is that they've agreed to sign over their brain over into the cloud. Right? So this is where they're actually housed, is the database with ticket systems. And all their brains have been essentially uploaded into these devices and included into the service. See, they still got those infrastructure as a service there, right? So they're not completely merged into one. And this is how you actually achieve digital immortality in the lens of this sci-fi theories. And so what does this mean in the future, right? So we've seen altered carbon as well, what that dystopia will look like. Will only billionaires have access to this technology? What if we have them living forever? Will the knowledge of these futures be embedded? These billionaires will essentially have access to all that technology, but all the poorer off, we won't have that. You'll have to settle for these stacks and sleeves that are not as worth as what you have. Life 3.0 is also worth a read. Max Tegmark, writing about what that superintelligence will look like, what that perfect merger with humanity and AI will be. I think if Apple progresses at the rate it's going to bring these technologies to the masses, this is how we'll slowly transition and get used to these technologies merging with us. These AIs will be our compasses at the beginning because we're creating an AI layer for our brains and working with them as our intelligent agents. But in the future, what if that superintelligence is us? Our artificial general intelligence is us actually merging with the AI there. So transhumanism is this sort of term about how do we achieve super longevity, super intelligence, and super well-being. Longevity being living longer and healthier. So if you stay healthy enough to wait for that super intelligence being, this is where you're merging with AI then. And we don't want to just keep it to the billionaires. The super well-being is about how do we create access for all, leaving no one behind. So Gartner has actually spotted that 2018 was the transhuman era. This is where things like the do-it-yourself biohacking, the biochips and biotech, and the exoskeletons and brain-computer interfaces are starting to hit this Gartner hype cycle, and people are starting to notice. And this year, we've actually seen a dedicated list for the augmented human, where the biochips and emotion AI and the augmented intelligence is actually going up the hype cycle, and it's actually being recognized the innovation trigger there. So over the next 10 years, we're going to see it go through the hype cycle and find ways along this slip of enlightenment. And we're going to see corporations find ways to get their employees to adopt these technologies to stay competitive. Because without that, then the automation will take us over and we'll be living on a basic income, as well told. And so, think about the devices that you're using right now. Think about how you interact with them. The input and output, that signals to the ones and zeros is essentially quite analog because you're getting your thumbs to type into the text. But as you're merging with these brain-computer interfaces and merging with AI, this is actually allowing you to have brain-to-brain communication, right? So you'll be able to send emotions rather than just texts. So you'll be able to share your sense of love, loss, contentment, and joy, right? I think this is the next sort of logical step at emergence. Right? So this is essentially a better version. And you have teenagers out there saying, look, you just don't understand. And they'll be able to send that emotion to you. You'll be able to receive that information. So it's going to make us better humans. And what does that mean for the superintelligence side? Well, this is probably how we can embed safe AI. Because if you want AI that represents the values of humanity, every individual needs to have a say. And connecting us to that connected intelligence will be able to help teach that AI what our values are. So with that, thank you very much, and hope you enjoy your future iPhone devices.
Thank you very much, Peter. We do have one question that we'll ask you. When will we have devices that are transparently part of the circular economy?
Circular economy?
Yeah.
So you're saying that we have devices that contribute to the economy, the inputs and outputs for devices and technology. Yeah, that's right. I'm clarifying that this circular economy is simply saying, well, that the value generated in society is now being centralized in these large corporations. So all this automation is driving a lot of inequality because the shareholders are the ones that are benefiting from all this new value. And the circular economy would mean that, well, the data that you're sharing with that economy should be able to generate also an income for you. And that's why, with the Andrew Yang initiative, so looking at the universal basic income, so data is the new oil, and if people are getting their oil checks in places like Alaska, right, they're getting a basic income just from the oil that's dug out from the ground to generate that value. Well, data should also be generating that value for the citizens. So I guess that circular economy will mean that us as individuals, our thoughts and our contributions in society, the data behind that should also be recognised and redefining what it is to actually work in the future.
Thank you, Peter. We're going to take a short break on the stage, but we'll be back in about 10 minutes with David Ledger from Solomon.